The more that you know. All right, so we want to do something this week, maybe a little different than what we've done in the past. This is sort of a slow week. There's no events to talk about. There's no crazy happenings or anything else. So we want to go with a deep dive on a topic here. Advanced finance, if you want to call it that. But DJ does, for those who maybe aren't super familiar with all of our backgrounds, Jason and I run singles at LGS's, and DJ is very, very deep into TCG player selling. So he wants to talk a little bit about TCG Direct for anybody out there who is looking to dip their toes into maybe not starting a TCG player store, but growing their TCG player store.
So the closest analogy I can make for TCGPlayer Direct is it is a program similar to Fulfilled by Amazon. If you've ever ordered anything on Amazon from a bunch of different sellers and had it come in one neat little package from Amazon's headquarters, that is the analogy for Magic cards. You can order on TCG Player's website from a whole bunch of different stores, and you get one neat little blue package from TCG Player. You might have ordered from me, from Corbin, from Jason, from Channel Fireball, who happens to sponsor this podcast, from a number of different stores, but you get one package. And the advantage that for me as a seller is that I can sell a bunch of cards to a bunch of different buyers. So I can sell to Jerry Thompson, Emma Handy. I can sell to all these pro players, Todd Anderson, all these crazy Magic players out there around the world, or in the country at least. And then I only have to ship one package, and I can ship one singular package to TCG Player's headquarters, which happens to be 10 minutes down the road for me. So the advantage for me as a seller is that I can only ship one package. It's a lot less time. I'm not sending 100 envelopes out. I am mailing one individual package for all my direct sales. And with this program comes a lot of nuances in pricing.
Okay. Right. So what are some of the takeaways for somebody out there who maybe is selling cards on their own low key already, but kind of want to take the next step? I mean, we eventually moved into direct at my store, and we send out a pretty regular amount of cards. So it's worked out very well for us. But DJ's right. There are some intricacies that are worth knowing. So DJ, what are some of the key things?
You're going to have to sell for months before you stop making mistakes. And I think it would be value to people that are sort of starting with it now, but like don't want to make those mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I made a lot of mistakes moving from not direct to direct, and I lost a decent amount of money just sort of stepping on the spikes or whatever, however you want to say it, just like crawling on the barbed wire for everyone else who's going to watch this video. But so when you order something on TCG Player Direct, there are a couple different thresholds for shipping. And one of those shipping thresholds is $19.99 to $20. If you order something on TCG Player Direct and you order it as a direct package and you make your order hit that $20 threshold, you will receive free shipping. Now, that cost is passed on to me as the seller who happens to sell that card. So if I sell a card on TCG Player Direct for $19.99, that card will be shipped by TCG Player, if it's a single card order, in a plain white envelope. It'll have a stamp on it. It'll go out as a regular order for very minimal cost to them. And so that fee is passed on to me. So I get to effectively ship that card in a plain white envelope with no tracking. But if I sell that same card for $20.08, then the TCG Player is going to ship that card from their warehouse with tracking. And that means they're going to charge me the $2.80 or whatever, the sub $3 to ship that card, which means that gets taken out of my cost. So my net number on a card that I sell for $19.99 is actually higher than the net number that I sell for $20 and $21.09 or whatever. So that creates this sort of dead zone for different pricing thresholds on TCG Player, where if you are a direct seller, you really want to avoid pricing individual cards anywhere between $20 exactly, and I forget the number, I have a spreadsheet for it, but it's like $22 and something. So like you only want to list cards at $19.99, and the next highest price you're going to list at is $23 roughly.
And for those of you who are watching on YouTube, we'll have our editor put up the specific numbers here, or they'll be in the description. We'll share them in Discord. That way you can have really the guide to what you need to know here.
Yes. And the same is true for the way TCG Player markets their fees to you at different pricing thresholds. So if you sell a card on TCG Player for $2.99, or less, then they will always take a 50% flat fee from that sale. So if I list let's just say a Grixis Panorama for $1.99 from the Commander set, and that card sells, I will make $1 from that card. If I list a card for $3.02, they will take instead of the regular fee, what you might be used to as a non-direct seller, which is a flat percentage plus a flat amount. So it's like 10% or 11% plus a 30-cent flat fee. And for smaller value cards, that fee ends up being higher than the 50% flat fee for roughly $3 to $3.60 or so. So there's another dead zone there from $3 all the way up until $3.60. So I have a lot of cards on TCG Player that are listed at $2.99 because I know that the number I'll get will always be $1.50, and then my next highest threshold is $3.75 or so.
So you might make more selling a card for $2.99 than you would for $3.01.
Yes, and you also might have better outs for that card at $2.99. So if it's a card where the regular market price of it is $2 and I list it for $2.99 because it's a direct card, and that means it'll have higher velocity and it'll move, that's great because it's a card that's normally $2, but I'm selling it for $2.99, so I'm willing to accept that big 50% chunk. But if it's like a $3.75 card, if it's like a $4 card, like a Glacial Fortress or something, I probably don't want to list it for $2.99 because then I'm only making $1.50, and then my better out is like a buy list or selling it on a different platform or trading it out to a local player. So there become these nuances and different channels for cards to go through, where I have a very specific criteria of cards that are very, very good for me on TCG Player. These are cards where the market price might only be $16, but I know I can make a $19.99 on the card because there's generally not very many quantities of the card in TCG Player Direct.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's the thing is that a lot of times people just want all their cards in one package, so they get them direct. And if people browse with that tab checked or what have you, they don't even know or care that they're spending more. So if you are someone who gets into direct, that's something to keep in mind is that you don't always have to be targeting the lowest listed price.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, this is just something I've gotten to enjoy and experience on TCG Player Direct is if there's a card on that platform that just they don't exist and I'm the only direct seller with that card in stock, I get to make up the price. I've had cards before where it's like, oh, this is a Cold Steel card. Low for the regular one is $5.99. Oh, there's none on direct, $8.99, and it'll sell in a couple days.
Yeah. So this obviously, we understand that this is sort of only relevant to a smaller number of listeners who are looking at this, but it's very relevant to everyone just to understand sort of how the market works and some of the machinery that takes place.
And anybody
behind the scenes.
who's looking to buy on TCG Player or who has previously bought direct and may not have known that they were paying an additional amount just because they were using the direct filter, because the prices can be significantly higher when buying from direct. And I mean, I guess this is another, I could have led with this, but if you are a seller on TCG Player and you have a few hundred sales under your belt, or if you have some amount of inventory quantity that you're looking to move at a higher volume, if you're growing that sort of business model in your own local area, I would roughly recommend the ability to have at least probably 3,000 to 4,000 cards in an inventory consistently. And I would recommend you have the ability to fulfill roughly probably 300 orders in a month. So like 10 orders a day-ish, consistently. And that is over, you need to be able to think about the long term and not just, oh, I have X thousand cards in TCG Player, I can fulfill that. Right. Because when you sign
Anyone
up for TCG,
who's done this for a while will tell you that buying is infinitely harder than selling, just because, you know, it's hard to buy at the price that you need to be able to buy at to make money selling. So,
well, and that's why vendors pay a lot for a booth at a Magic Fest. Exactly. Because they have to have somewhere to buy. And yeah, it costs a lot of money to have a booth at a Magic Fest, and they have to pay very good prices. You know, if you're somebody selling, typically, you know, we've talked about this sort of different avenues for selling your cards before, and usually I recommend a buy list like Channel Fireball or Card Kingdom
or 95.
Those can be good to 95 MTG. But if you're at an event, you can get great prices from the vendors on site, especially for the in-demand cards. And that's what they have to do because those are the cards they need to turn around and sell. So buying cards as a vendor is by far the biggest challenge that they will face, and that's just something you have to keep in mind, is that you really need to make sure you have your supply chain or pipeline sort of lined up before you make that jump.
Yes, over the past decade, Magic Magic as a business has transitioned from a model of margins to a model of volume. So back in the day, the model used to be buy cards at 50% of retail and then sell them at retail and make your double up minus shipping and fees. And as the market has become much more streamlined and competitive, and as people have found different supply chain channels and arbitrage opportunities, and the market just sort of becomes naturally more efficient over time, the winners become the ones who can establish the most logistically sound supply chain and operate at a very high volume. I mean, if you've been to the Magic Fest booth and you've looked at 95 MTG, which is the vendor that I work for, you can see there are a lot of cards that we just make a very small margin on. We buy a Spell Queller at 9 and then sell it for 11. And I'd rather just make that transaction happen hundreds of times throughout the weekend instead of trying to buy Spell Queller at 5 and sell it for 13 on site. So because
you won't get them. It's a very competitive.
I'd rather just be the highest buy price in the room and the lowest sell price in the room on most cards that we have available, and just have
It's not about your percentages anymore. It's about volume.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's the reality is that's how most businesses work. If you look at the margins on, say, big box stores or something these days, right? That they're operating on tiny margins, but then they do millions of transactions. This is the whole thing for those who don't know. Black Friday, and I don't actually know if this is like a wives' tale or not, but Black Friday was called Black Friday because that was the day when stores got into the black for the year, and which means they made a profit. And if you think about that, that comes in late November. So if you're a big box store, you would go 11 months of the year and you make all your profit for the year in the last month and a half or so. But because you're doing so many transactions, it adds up. And Magic, as the market become more efficient, has operated more like that. So for some context at my store, we have the highest trade-in price for all cards of anywhere else. We give the best percentages, and we take almost everything. But then we also turn around, and when we sell cards, we sell them at the market price. We're not trying to do a markup at all. We don't even want to sticker the cards because that creates if a card drops, we're not going to sell it, and we're not going to know why because we're just not going to notice it. So we make sure we are always up to date with the market, and we sell cards at the market price, which generally leads to us having the cheapest price as well. And the goal is to just be the place that people want to go to trade in their cards and the place that people want to go to buy their cards, and you get all the traffic in rather than trying to mark your cards up more. It just doesn't work. Both DJ's talking sort of on the online marketplace level, but in my experience, even at a local level, people do that same sort of calculation, and that's where you want to be.
Yes. And unfortunately, having to do that kind of volume just kind of forces people out. Unfortunately, like you get big monopolies, but that's sort of the reality of the business where people, the only thing they really care about is the cheapest price. They don't really care about sustainability or, keeping the money local. It's just, them with the cheapest price.
Well, and that's why, Amazon comes out and sells their boxes or whatever at 95 or whatever their price is. And they're making dollars per box, but no one else can compete with that, right? Because no one's Amazon. That's why Amazon has forced, however many hundreds or thousands of companies out of business since their inception, because they just said, we are going to be ruthlessly efficient. We're going to make our employees pee in buckets on the job or whatever, so that we can turn around and make our 1% margin.
But that's what people have said they want,
Well, the market, and it's capitalism, right? The market speaks louder than anything else, right? And if this is why we talk a lot about supporting your local store, because it's not just like you have to throw your hands.
Capitalism is its own gravedigger. That's why.
Right. Well, you don't have to. I'm just saying you don't have to throw your hands up and say there's nothing we can do about this. A dedicated community can choose to spend 10% more at their LGS and have a place to play and have community goodwill, keep the money local, and all of that. It certainly happens. There are companies that specialize in making products in America, or making products ethically, or that sort of thing, so that they exist because they may be smaller, right? They may not be Amazon levels, but they exist because enough people do care. So I don't think it's sort of a defeatist attitude here where this is where everything's always going to lead. It's just something you have to keep in mind to let people sort of understand how these things look behind the scenes to the people crunching the numbers. So what is your advice, DJ, ultimately? Should that be the goal for people who are interested in selling online, is to get to a place where you can be direct?
I think it heavily depends on the amount of time and effort you're looking to put into a system like Magic. If it is something that you're doing like at college or as a dedicated side hustle where you're like, I know I am putting 10 hours a week into this and receiving some sort of return mathematically, then it's fine. I do not think that direct is the answer for most binder grinders or most people who are just looking to flip some cards or buy collections once in a while. It is a very helpful tool if you can get to that sort of threshold, and it is a very helpful tool if you can learn a lot of the intricacies of the program and a lot of the nuances, and specifically what channels and cards need to go into and what cards are very bad selling on TCGPlayer, what cards are very good. It is a just entire microverse that I am happy to elaborate and rant more on in our Discord channel if people would be interested in that. But
yeah, well, this is definitely, I assume, people are going to listen to this and have more sort of specific questions. So like I said, make sure we'll have some of the specifics in the video when we cut this out and put it up as a brain bite. But also join our Discord and ask us yourself. How would one go about joining that Discord? Jason, do you know?
I've never had to do it. Like,
good point.
I was given a Discord account and they're like, you have to go here and interact with these nerds. And I was like, I don't want to do that. They screenshot.
Wow, this is my moment then. All right, Jason, pass the torch here. Here we go. For as little as 20 or 25 cents a week, that's $1 a month, you can join the Brainstorm Brewery Discord channel where you get to interact with your gracious and talented hosts who are happy to impart their Magic finance knowledge, talk to you about Star Wars, or argue with you about politics, any of the above. And if you really want to go crazy, you can get some of those rewards at a higher tier, and you would do that by going to patreon.com/brainstormbrewery. How did I do?
Did you say it was 20 or 25 cents an episode?
I did.
That's kind of my thing.
Well, man, I called you up to the plate and you went and sat back down. I don't know.
I already pitched the Patreon once this episode.